Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and after many years as a marketing leader in the B2B SaaS industry, I set up Hey Gabby to support startups and scale-ups with their go-to-market and growth needs. I work with so many great founders, and that's led me to want to hear their stories and share them with others. And that's why I set up this podcast. So let's get into this week's podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. And this week I'm speaking with Richa Kaul, and she joins us as she's the CEO and founder of a company called Complyance. Now, we were just chatting briefly. This is such a small world. It's so interesting how the startup community in the UK is so close, and everyone seems to know everyone. And you were even mentioning that you knew Alex Boyce, who was one of our guests on season 1. How did you guys meet?
Yeah, Alex is a friend. We got introduced when I was raising my pre-seed round. Alex gave me some invaluable advice and just support through it. He was a stranger and quickly became a friend through that.
Brilliant. And of course, you're both from the US.
Yeah, that was a nice point of bonding as part of that first introduction.
So I think quite a few people would be really surprised that, the US is considered the hub of the startup world. And yet here you are. And you guys are not the only ones, but we're seeing more and more people moving from the US to the UK to build this amazing hub of tech startups. So tell me what kind of drew you to the UK? How did you end up here?
Complete happenstance. My husband's job brought us to the UK in the end of 2019. And so I got a different job, worked at a tech startup actually when I first joined here, and then decided that we were enjoying it so much. We weren't going to move back to the US. We just love the quality of life here, uh, adventures to Europe. And so we decided to keep living here for a little while, and the company kind of started organically here without much thought about it.
And no plans to move back?
Don't know. TBD.
It must be the weather that keeps you here.
I'm from Boston, so the weather actually doesn't bother me so much, and it's just become home.
Great, fantastic. So tell us about Complyance and tell us about that journey and how you started the business.
I will be honest with you, Natalie. Even if you asked me a month before Compliance started, I would have told you I'll never be a founder because I really, really never saw myself as a founder. I think when Compliance started, it came from two places. One is that I'm kind of a data privacy nut in my personal life. So I am the person who will spend time rejecting all the cookies. I have a little trick to show you later if you want on our phones about how we can all be a little bit more private with our data. And so I really care about not just protecting my own data, but helping consumers protect their data. The second kind of realization is that there was this gap in the market for modern tech that helps enterprises really stay on top of their information security. And so I felt that a mission to protect consumer data is actually enabled by a practicality of helping enterprises stay on top of their information security compliance. And between those two things, Compliance with a Y was born. And Compliance is spelled with a Y as a bit of a play on words because, those who really understand the space know that compliance with an I does not equal security. Compliance should be a byproduct of good information security practices and sound internal processes to protect your customers' data. And so compliance with the Y is a bit of a nod to that, to say, hey, there's the why behind compliance, the risk reduction, protection for your customers, and that's why we exist.
Amazing. I mean, most people know I've spent many years in the cybersecurity space. So you're speaking to the converted, and I'm definitely one of those people that spends forever clicking on the do not accept cookies and setting all of those things. So I hear you. But I mean, cybersecurity is one of those things. It's a huge market, and there's companies that are doing all sorts of different things. I mean, it's just so many different subsections of the industry, and massive companies and startups popping up. Obviously that's quite risky, and you sort of said yourself that you didn't see yourself as a founder even a month before. What made you take that leap?
It's a great question. And I think with all founders, as I'm sure you can attest to, there's some just blind conviction, and you have to be a little bit blind in order to fully disrupt your life by taking the leap to become a founder. And that is really what I had. I mean, I saw a space in which I felt as though tech for enterprise had not been modernized in so many years. And the level of control that was afforded to these enterprises over their InfoSec compliance by the current tech stack was nowhere near what I would hope that the companies who hold my data, actually had. And so I think for me, it was a little bit about saying, okay, you know what? There is real need here. There's a real mission at the end of the tunnel. Let's jump in. And that's kind of how it all happened.
Amazing. And in those early days, I know you have a real wealth of experience in the strategy space. How did you kind of go from your experience in strategy to building a tech business? What were the kind of things that you needed to do in order to get going?
I'm really grateful for my experience at Contract Pod, which is where I was just before starting compliance, because it helped me bridge the gap between more strategic, high level, more bureaucratic ways of thinking from McKinsey and government, which is my background, into a startup environment where I was able to take whatever strategy means and apply it to execution. And I think that I was chief strategy officer at Contract Pod, but I think that that role was just a fancy way of saying I got the opportunity to help across the business and across different functions. And the practicality of that was the best learning ground I could have possibly had as a founder. And I'm super grateful for it.
Amazing. And so you got started, you had your idea. What were the kind of first things that you did to start building the organization?
Well, firstly, had to find the best CTO. As a non-technical founder, that was the number one priority, and could not have been more lucky to have met Hugo Noguera, who is our current CTO and has been with us from the very beginning. He's not only one of the most amazing people you'll meet, but just a really well-rounded CTO who thinks about the product from the user's perspective, from a scalability perspective, from a real enterprise perspective, from the very beginning.
And so bringing Hugo in obviously helped you on the technical side. What other things were you then considering in terms of, packaging up the product, identifying, what your positioning was and who your target audience were going to be? I know you had a sense of them being in the enterprise space.
Yeah, that's a big question. So I think in the early days, the first thing was around validating the problem and making sure that we started to take step by step changes to a solution. So we knew from the beginning that we were not, building the best version of the product at the front end. It was all about releasing something, even if there was some discomfort with it, to start to get feedback from the market ASAP. And so those first couple months and the months before, finally starting and doing the damn thing was spent just speaking to so many people who manage information security compliance. I still have my notes, and I sometimes still go back to those notes of those calls and just immersing myself. I actually managed compliance for Contract Pod as part of my purview. And so I had that window into what it meant for me, but I needed to understand what it meant for, everybody else, and especially at the enterprise level, what it meant. And so we actually started by doing some services where we would pitch a relatively low cost service to support a bigger company, mid market plus, to get, a SOC 2 certification, which is something I knew a lot about, or to do some form of compliance attainment with some support from us is basically how we positioned it. And by doing those services, we got to embed in a really interesting way right into these business models and understand the pains more firsthand in addition to all the interviews that we were doing. And then I was feeding back this product insight to Hugo, and we were basically mapping out together, what is this product actually going to be? What can we build as not even the bicycle, like more like an axle version of this product to actually get started a little bit, get it socialized, get some feedback, and then continue on. And that methodology of listening to clients, hearing the problem, and building the solution for the problem has served us from day one, and we still do it today. Even for the smallest features, we are asking clients what their problem is, what they expect of a solution, and we are listening to them and building accordingly.
What do you think would have been the difference between building compliance in the UK versus had you gone back to the US to build the company? Given the huge impact of compliance laws and governance across the different countries.
Good question. I would say that when it comes to information security compliance, just as a baseline, it's worth noting that it is not federally regulated technically in either jurisdiction. So, of course, privacy laws are highly regulated in the EU, but actually, what we cover, which is ISO 27001, SOC 2, some other standards that are now becoming more regulated. But when we started, it actually didn't matter which jurisdiction we were in. And in fact, the majority of our clients are in the US. So I'm going to answer your question in a different way, which is to explain more about how it would have changed the backbone of the company. Think first off, we would have raised from only US investors. We do have US investors now, but not only US. And I think that changes, honestly, valuations, changes the amounts raised. I think that US startup environment kind of, begets a certain level of size and valuation of rounds that is its own world. I've played in it before, and I know we're going to play in it again with compliance. But I think that's just one real practical kind of outcome of raising and starting this company in the UK. The other one is just around talent. So I think we have a really good spread of talent between our three hubs, which is New York, London, and Berlin. And I think, it's surprising for a US company to have such a presence in obviously London and Berlin. But we love it because it provides some level of just like diversity, global perspective. It provides coverage for those global teams, which we often work with as a company who serves enterprises. And it provides, I suppose, the ability to have some level of arbitration around pricing and kind of like resource because it's a little bit cheaper to do business in the EU and the UK than it is in the US.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting you were saying about the investment journey. What was the path that you chose from the beginning, in terms of how you were going to raise and what did that look like for you?
Great question, Natalie. Because along with me saying, I don't think I'm going to be a founder, was me saying, if I'm a founder, I'm definitely going to bootstrap. And then I did the opposite of that as well. So just like completely different story than I expected to unfold. But yeah, I was very lucky to have what's called a preemptive round or have investors basically reaching out to me when I started mentioning that I was going to be starting a company. So I didn't quote unquote need to raise the first round. I did go around and do some pitches, but it was an unusually easy process, I would say. And so it was was very hard to make the decision of whether or not I wanted to raise VC money or whether I wanted to bootstrap it because I was lucky enough to have the option. And I chose to go with the VC backed route because I wanted to build momentum quickly. As you mentioned at the beginning of this, the GRC tech space is busy. It's hot, actually. There's a lot of folks coming up, and it's hard to kind of stand out from the fray. And in some regard, one of the ways to stand out is just to be able to hire the best talent, and that does take some money. And so we decided to raise the pre-seed round. It enabled me to start working with Hugo, for example. Actually met him through that. Yeah, I don't regret it at all.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it was the right journey for you. And I think everybody has their own kind of path that they need to take. There's no right or wrong way when it comes to funding. And so you raised, you built some relationships, and you mentioned that you've got now a mix of sort of European and US investors. What does that look like in terms of managing those relationships? In terms of keeping everyone happy.
At the end of the day.
Um, I actually told some of our European investors, disclaimer, I'm an American founder. And I said that a bit jokingly, but they got the message, which is that I think American founders tend to care a little bit less about what their VCs think than European founders do. And I think that's a bit ingrained in me and who I am. Not to say that I don't care. I love our VCs. And I actually think that part of what enables us to have such a good partnership with them rather than feeling like we need to keep them happy is that we have opted in our funding rounds to go for the people who were the best fit for us rather than just the funds with the best names. And we have some great names, Creandum, HV Capital, Speed Invest, who are, recognized globally as some of the leading VCs. But I just wanted to say, we were really particular about the people at those places and about even if we had two competing term sheets, which we did in the past, we chose based on the person, not based on the fund.
That makes a huge difference. And it's interesting what you were saying because I've spoken to quite a lot of female founders who have really struggled with the kind of funding journey, struggled to be taken seriously, struggled in competitive markets. But it seems like you've had a little bit of an easier journey. And part of that's probably your reputation and your relationships from your previous work. Would you say that that's how you've managed to kind of get ahead in those situations?
It's hard, Natalie, to know why. I think the relationships with the folks I had at past jobs did not directly translate to the pre-seed round because my relationships were in later stage VC. I think that it was a couple things, but I think that a lot of it is luck. And honestly, I feel for the female founders who are out there in the UK right now, I know some research says that the UK is one of the hardest places as a female founder to raise money. I made it on some list in 2023 for the 5 female founders who had raised the most money, and I had only raised my pre-seed round. It was just strange. It was really strange. And that was a moment where I thought, this isn't right. There's no chance that I should be on this list. And that's what I'm talking about, where I say, it seems like a tough environment. And I wish I knew why. I can share that from my side. I think, again, I don't know if this is going to sound strange, but I think I really raise money like an American founder. And so I think that inherent in that are almost expectations of American valuations and American funding round sizes. And I think that's my only basis for comparison. And so that's just what I perhaps accidentally exude when I'm in those meetings, and I do think that it helps. I obviously don't know for a fact, but that's my quick read of it. I speak to a lot of female founders in the UK and try and kind of coach them in their funding rounds. And one of the things I find myself telling every single one of them is like, look, expect more from the people across the table from you. They're expecting so much of you. You should expect more of them. And I think that maybe that contributes to it. I'm not sure.
That's huge. And I think that's really admirable that you're taking the time to help other female founders. So I'm sure they really appreciate all that extra coaching that you're giving. I'm not sure how you find the time to do it. So let's go back to when you were sort of saying earlier about the fact that there's not a chance that you thought you were going to be a founder and you didn't think that was the path for you. What was it about being a founder that kind of made you so adamant that that wasn't your journey?
Um, why was I so adamant that I wouldn't be a founder? I think I think being a founder is kind of a crazy thing to do, and it takes so much vision and innovation that I genuinely didn't know that I had. And sometimes even today, I think it is through finding the right people around me rather than, being able to do it all myself. And I think that that's been my path to foundership and the key unlock for me personally.
And what would you say has been the experience that you've had? Has it met the expectations, exceeded?
In ways, it has exceeded, and in ways, it's been way tougher. I mean, I think that the realities of being a founder are ups and downs all the time, and the ups feel so good. I mean, for example, I'm so proud of the culture that we've built at Compliance. And, anytime someone on the team does something that is so representative of that culture or speaks to it in a proud way, I feel so much pride and such a good high. And then I think, there's the realities of the job, including how much unexpected stuff comes at you, whether it's late at night or you're on vacation or something's going on and something random and admin that you got to deal with. It adds up and it starts to grate. And so I think it's about anchoring in the good things and remembering that you chose this. And, at the end of the day, this is, you're playing a game here of, it's a big game. It's a really, really big game. And so are you ready to play it? And if not, that's okay too. But if you're going to be in it, you know, there are consequences that come with playing a game this big.
Absolutely. And you mentioned obviously it is a crowded space, cybersecurity in general, and there's lots of organizations popping up. So what has been Compliance's approach to standing out and really making sure that you get a seat at the table and the opportunity to really penetrate into that enterprise space?
So it's innovation, support, and then a product that really delivers. So I think on the innovation side, we have been at the front of using AI and enterprise GRC while using AI privacy best practices so that our clients can actually use the AI that we have in the product. So that's everything from releasing AI agents before the rest of the market was doing so to constantly innovating, releasing new agents all the time. We're actually releasing one this week. And making sure that we're pushing the boundaries of how we use AI to reduce manual work for our teams for our clients, so that they can focus on what they need to do. The second piece is customer support. I think in way too many enterprise B2B relationships, you either are paying an arm and a leg for customer support or you're not receiving customer support. And those seem to be the two extremes. And so we've tried to innovate on that model as well to say, look, we are going to provide a really consultative and supportive white glove service approach to implementing our clients. And we're going to do so in a way that feels very complete for the period of implementation. And there's huge ROI from that. So for the 6 to 10 weeks that they're implementing the product, they're getting almost dedicated hands-on time from a member of our customer engagement team to help them get set up and going. I think that leads to a product that delivers, which is that, again, an enterprise B2B, forget GRC. My goodness, so many times people buy tech and then they don't adopt it. What speeds into a product that delivers is the good UI that encourages adoption. It's the tech that actually works, not full of bugs, not full of delays, just tech that you can rely on. And then that customer support that comes in to make it easy to use, trains your team, does all that stuff. And clients feel the impact. And it's amazing to see the impact that our clients have from the product.
Amazing. So you've built this amazing product in a really forward thinking industry, something that is going to continue to grow over time. Somehow you find time to hopefully sleep, but also mentor other female founders out there. And you've grown in three key markets, which is huge in the time that you guys have been going and hitting a very difficult space. Let's be honest, going after the enterprise is never an easy thing to do. What do you think are the plans, or what are the plans for the organization for the next, say, 2 to 4 years?
We want to create more and more and more customer impact. I keeps me up at night is all the conversations that we're not in, all of the clients who we don't get a chance to serve, not because we're losing a deal, just because we don't know to be in those deals. We're not in them. They don't know us. We don't know them. And it really, really keeps me up at night. So we are finally, after 3 years or 2.5 years, investing in marketing, which is the first time we're doing it. And it's crazy. Crazy that it's taken us this long, but that's where we're at. And we're investing in our GTM. And so we're hoping to be just better known soon. And that is really my goal, is to reach more customers and through that help protect their customers.
Absolutely. I think having that awareness is huge. Being able to have a seat at that table, they need to know you, and obviously you need to get into those deals.
Yeah.
So, if you were to go back and give yourself advice, you know, Richa, from 4 or 5 years ago, what would be the kind of key things that you would say to yourself, that are effectively things you've experienced and learned from since being a founder?
I would say maybe two things. One is go with your gut and stick to it. And the other thing is lean in on growth faster. I think I have had this, honestly, mantra since starting the company, which is that I wanted to walk the walk before we talked the talk. And I say this, to the team, and I've said this to my friends, to my family. We really wanted to walk the walk before we talk the talk. And that's why it's taken us so long to do marketing. So I was very anti, let's talk and then figure it out afterwards, because I think it leads to customer dissatisfaction. But I think I waited a beat longer than I maybe should have. And so we're making up lost ground right now. But, I think I could have leaned in just a little bit earlier and still stayed true to my principles.
Excellent, excellent. And what advice would you give to other founders that are out there at the moment that are probably thinking like you are? There's no way I want to be a founder, or, oh, should I do it? Perhaps they haven't taken the leap just yet, or are perhaps just starting out. What advice would you give those people?
I would say lean in when you have a really good idea that you're excited about. I see two groups of people. I see folks who are out there who have a good idea and aren't yet, taking the leap to become a founder. I would tell them lean in. And I see people who are out there who really want to be a founder and don't have that perfect idea yet. And I would tell them lean into finding that before you just jump in. Because I think that it's important. It gives you the stamina to continue in the hard moments when you're relying on something that you really love and an idea that you're really excited about. And just as a small side note to female founders, I would say what I say to everyone who I give advice to, which is expect more from the people on the other side of the table. And don't be afraid to have a little swagger when you're in those conversations, because you're the founder. And I think that goes a long way.
That is brilliant. Richa, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Hopefully, you'll come back in maybe a year's time and give us an update on how things are going.
That's good, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share, or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.